Hi, and welcome to the Peak Potential Institute with Dr. Mike Marinus. Thanks for joining us today, Mike. I have known you for decades, and I have to say, I've always respected not only your work, but your commitment to improving our profession through your continual selfless efforts and boundless energy. You are in more places and more times than pretty much anybody else I know. But Dr. Mike is a global leader in pediatric chiropractic and the founder of Connected Pediatrics. He is joining us in the United States for a rare opportunity, and we couldn't be more thrilled to host him here. On August 23rd and 24th, Dr. Marinus will present his groundbreaking workshop, Peds in Motion, right here in Boston, Massachusetts. This hands-on seminar explores the natural development of infant movement from fetal positioning to upright walking and gives chiropractors practical tools to assess and support each crucial milestone, including rolling, sitting, crawling, and cruising. What I love about Mike's work is not only does he give you the clinical background, but he tells you how to deal with it in practice, because as chiropractors, that is the most important thing. So in this conversation, we're going to dive into what inspired this program, what has made Mike who he is, a second-generation chiropractor, and how movement patterns relate to neurological development. So whether you're focused on pediatrics or just looking to expand your clinical impact, this is a very unique opportunity, and we wish for you to join us on August 23rd and 24th. And right now, I'd like to turn the mic over to Dr. Marinus and tell him a little bit about himself and the seminar.
Right, so my name is Mike. I've been seeing kids for years and years. I do remember one of my first experiences of going to see Dr. Rosen in one of his seminars and sitting in the back. I'll never forget this. I was sitting in the back with a mate of mine, and this was way back in the day. And I remember you starting to talk, and this mate, I turned to this mate of mine and I said, "What is OST?" And he said, "Man, are you in trouble? You're going to need to learn a lot." But yeah, from the beginnings of being able to work with you, and as you said, second generation chiropractor, I grew up with chiropractic. I grew up with having a functioning nervous system is the most important thing. It's and especially when it comes to kids, function is what's going to dictate our structure later, and getting the function right now is of paramount importance. Which is where Peds in Motion came from. The seminar literally came from me getting so irritated over the years of people coming in and saying, "My baby's not rolling, my baby's not crawling, fix it." And me going, where do I start? What am I supposed to do? So it came out of the beginning of that to kind of go, what are the neurobiomechanics of movement? Because if we can start to understand that, then we can start to understand a little bit more going forward. So in the seminar, we're going to break down what are babies and kids moving? What are they hypermobile? Are the joints centrated? What is the mass that they're moving? Then we're going to look at what are they moving with? So what does the control look like? What are the genetics like? What are the reflexes like to be able to allow that movement to happen? And then, of course, the last part of the puzzle is what are they moving it against? What is the environment like? So basically, that first thing is to look at what is it like when your genetics interact with the environment.
Mhm.
What does that child have inherently that's going to allow that movement to happen?
Yeah.
Then once we've got that underway, we're going to start looking at core. We want to look at an adaptive base. How does a child form an adaptive base? How do we get the neurology to work against gravity to hold the child in the optimum position? And then when we've got that, what does that natural normal alignment look like? Because once you've got that, then you're developing without compensation. And really, that's the golden thread that's going to run our way through all of this. Because if we can get a child through those first 2 years, and Doc, I know you talk about this, that
Well,
first 2 years, the cerebellum is just growing like crazy. The neurology, the synaptogenesis is huge. And if you get any subluxation in that time, if you get a dural meningeal system that's not working properly, it's creating stress and tension in other areas, and that's going to come out in things like movement or things like the lack of movement.
what I love about your approach, Mike, is we talk about in that OST thing, also known as SOT. That SOT thing that we talk about is we talk about indicators, and it's great. Those are great to have a set of indicators. What I love about your work is not only do you talk about indicators, but you talk about the underlying affects of everything else that's happening in that child's environment. We always talk about nature versus nurture, and you kind of incorporate both of them in your seminar. So we have a baseline, and for people who are not used to indicator systems that don't want to use SOT or find, different approaches. Your approach fits across the entire spectrum of chiropractic care because you're looking at the underlying structure, you're looking at how the nervous system develops, you're looking at its effect to gravity. And so whatever your technique protocol is, you can monitor that technique protocol, how it changes the underlying structure, the neurology, and then of course you give them a baseline to change function, to look at it. You have a bit, I know you have an initial exam, and then when you're done with your initial exam, you do your adjustment protocols, and then you have follow-ups, and you can actually see objectively the changes. So it's a beautiful, beautiful system to integrate into pretty much any practice because I know it works 0 to 2, and we always talk about how important that is. But I imagine you could carry that on for older kids that come in too, because we see how challenged, the kids are 5, 6, and 7 when they're starting to get diagnosed with these dysfunctions, right?
Yeah, the beautiful thing is, if you look at the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds that have these dysfunctions, a lot of the time bringing them back to understanding what's supposed to happen at 3 months, what's supposed to happen at 6 months, and then look where they're missing the vital pieces. Start to integrate those back into their movement patterning, and that starts to change things, along with bringing their neurology along. Because if that doesn't happen, you're going to have primitive reflexes that are retained. And a lot of the time people go like, oh, primitive reflexes, they're the problem. They're not the problem. They're there because they have to be,
Exactly.
because they're holding
Yeah.
the neurology together.
Yeah.
So if we find out why they're holding the neurology together, then we can start to make the change.
Yeah, I know. I think people talk so much about primitive reflexes, and integrating. Well, primitive reflexes are a fight or flight protective response. So if you're 6 years old and carrying that into compensation, there's a reason why you're compensating. I agree. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the nuts and bolts part of your seminar, like what it looks like, step one, how where
Yeah.
you start and where you go? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So it comes along with an assessment that you're going to be able to take and use in your practice in Monday morning. So I've got the PIMPs and Motion assessment. And that assessment is going to look at what the core tone is doing, what the more distal tone is doing, and depending on age, where that child is. So one part of the seminar, the thing I'm sort of the most proud of in the seminar, because I found it completely by accident, and that's how the best thing happens. I have a 3 month exam, which is neurologically based. So
Oh,
this 3 month exam comes off research talking about the cortical subplate in the brain. So this area where you just get massive amounts of synaptogenesis that disappears at 3 months. All mammals have it, it's wonderful. And
right.
it allows the fetal brain to catch up, but at 3 months, it's gone. And when it's gone, you have the motor patterning that it's created for you. So
Mm,
I've got a step-by-step supine and prone 3 month exam that I'm going to be showing you guys that the research shows can literally throw forward to say, if you don't have 15 out of 15 on this test, chances are they're not going to be sitting at 6 months, or chances are they're not going to be rolling at 7 months, or they're not going to be sitting without support at 8 months. And now you've got another 3 months to be able to affect change. And
right.
then we can go back to that and go, now we've got what we were supposed to have, where we're sitting, and then we can go forward. So it's tests like that that
That's
run
awesome.
through 3 months, 4.5 months, 6 months.
Mm,
And the nice thing about this protocol is that it allows you to throw forward in your practice. Because what I found in my practice, a lot of people's practices, they go, I want people to come back, but why? And
mm.
then I say to them, I want you to come back at 6 months. And then at 6 months, I'm going, I'll check this. We give you the reason to bring them back at 6 months, what you want to check at 6 months, and what that means.
Yeah.
If you find something that's aberrant, how long do I have to change it? What does it mean if I change it? And that gives us a lovely throw forward for the first 2 years.
That's awesome. I think you froze a little bit. I'll go on. Hope you unfreeze after I talk. But what I think is really amazing is that we talk about synaptic
Yeah,
genesis
there we go.
peaking at 8 months, right? So we have that window. So you're talking about the first 3 months of cortical development, and then you have a time to reestablish that. But within from that 3 to 8 months is when the greatest synaptic development is occurring. So there's another window right in that period of time that you really have to make change because we both know if at 18 months the child hasn't reached their potential, whether it be milestones, retained reflexes, they're going to create compensatory patterns pretty much for the rest of life unless someone interrupts. And what I love about your program
Yeah.
is the other thing is the internal drive for the parent to come back. Like, oh, my kid feels better, or my kid's nursing better, or my kid's not throwing up, or my kid's rolling over now. That's great. But now let's see what that trajectory looks like and what we have changed so that we know where we need to go. Because what we're really concerned about is when they have a 6-year-old that has an integrated nervous system, that they're able to integrate a healthy nervous system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is it. And the thing that I've learned through this, the thing that really did change my practice is starting to think in terms of positivity.
Yeah.
Because I understand for myself and even for my children, I have only a certain finite amount of energy, time, all sorts to put into a problem,
Yep.
but I've got all the energy and time in the world to put into something positive.
Hmm.
People don't go to yoga until they feel better. You go because it's inherently a good thing to do. And that's the thing. If we can start saying, look, here's the next. So I'll give you a great example. I've
Yeah.
got this chap that comes in, huge business guy, really switched on chap. And I remember him coming in for the 6 months check. And he was so excited. And I was like, oh, has something happened? Well, he was like, no, no, you've gamified the whole thing for me. I
Uh,
want to know now because at 4.5 months, I knew what to look for. You give me the next things now because I'm going to look for those. And then when those kick in, I'm going to send you an email. So it just becomes
yeah.
the larger conversation.
Well, yeah, and it also becomes, on behaviorism, people love to get toys, gifts, and now you're giving them a neurological gift. And you're right. So people who have that left brain world who want to look at things like, oh, what do I get out of this? You have somebody right there. This is what you get out of it. Here it is. Look, I'm showing you exactly what you got out of it. And then they start to realize how their functional potential in life has changed, like how their energy levels change, how they're feeling better, how their interactions are better. I mean, you're right. Positivity and changing neurology changes your global aspect. It changes the way you feel. So it's awesome. So I love. So this 0 to 2 years that you're focusing on now, you're right. It can be carried all the way through life. Just like when we teach our pediatrics and we teach the pre-ambulatory infant, and people go, "Well, can I use this on adults?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can use this stuff on adults, but you have to add another layer because now you have a person who's ambulating, whose structural and compensation patterns are there." Right. And so I love it. I mean, I'm so excited that you're coming here and I'm so excited to see it. I've done some of your online courses in your Connected Pediatrics and they're
Yeah,
great. And like I said, I just want to reiterate what a lot of people in the United States probably think, oh, we're taking pediatrics, we're taking Dr. Rosen, we're taking ICPA. I'm telling you, this is different. This is the first time it's been in the United States. It's a different way of looking at things. I will guarantee you, it will add a level to your practice and a way to get patients to understand what you're doing. If the worst comes to worst, if you don't just get a good exam, you'll get a way to talk to patients in a way that they will stay under care for longer periods of time. And that's what we want is lifetime care patients. So,
that's
Mike,
it. Yeah.
anything else you want to add before we sign off and let people hear this? Because this is an amazing process.
I think, you said it really nicely now in terms of, there's this layer underneath that if you get into it with pediatrics and you start to create that change,
Mhm.
then once you start dealing with the adult later, it's a whole different ball game. So
Right.
I'm just so passionate about being able to get in on the ground level and
Yeah.
being able to change things and also getting parents' minds to sort of shift around their kids to understand what they should be doing and why it's important
Right.
that you do those things. And I think if there's anything I'm keen to talk about, that is exactly it when I get there. So yeah, thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to come. I'm looking very, very forward to being there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting all of you guys.
So remember, the seminar is August 23rd and 24th, right outside of Boston. If you want to find out information, go to drmartinrosen.com and click on the link to Peds in Motion. They'll give you all the information. You can sign up right now. We have great registration. It's wide open, but things are going to change very quickly as they often do. So take your time. It's a beautiful time to spend in Boston at this point. It's going to be a great seminar. I guarantee it'll add to your life. And if you have any questions, you can either contact Dr. Mike or myself, via email. And I hope to see you all at the seminar. We're going to be there with bells on. All right, Mike, great talking to you. And
Did
can't
it
wait to
great.
see you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day. Bye bye.